And distance as a university. I am sure that this will equally apply to many other notable men and women whose lives he touched as a lecturer and mentor, and of course some institutions too where he worked during his illustrious career. As I conclude my speech and declare the colloquium open, I want to thank the two collaborating departments from Anchor University and the University of Lagos that invested the last few weeks in working together to make this colloquium possible. I also appreciate members of the local organizing committee for their relentless efforts, the family members of Professor Lawal for their support and cooperation, and all the people in attendance for being a part of this first colloquium in his honor. I return on behalf of all glory to God Almighty. Finally, I welcome all our guests, my eminent historian and co-host, Professor David Awarawa, and the keynote speakers to this ambient environment of our young, vibrant, and ambitious growing university. The EBC has said, we expect, and it's the prayer of parents, that our children will be greater than we. So Anchor University will be greater. Once again, let me remind us that we owe our days, our lives, and people we leave behind us the duty to live a life that is worthy of appreciation and gratitude. Professor Lawal lived a life that is worthy of honor and accolades. He will always be well remembered. Ladies and gentlemen, I am glad to officially declare this colloquium open in honor of our soldier who has written his name and title in bold among eminent and respected scholars in the academics. By the grace of God, as we have started today, we hope to continue with this tradition at Anchor University. Sincerely, I thank you all.
Let's put our hands together for that great welcome note from our heralded Vice Chancellor, Professor J.O. Afolayan. You can be a witness with us in Anchor University. We celebrate scholars, and we also want us to know that not just somebody that has passed on, a life still lives on by interrogating what we call an inclusive future for all of us on this campus. Join me now as I welcome the co-host, Professor David Awarawa, the head of the Department of History and Strategic Studies, University of Lagos, for his opening remarks. Thank you very much, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. I want to stand on existing protocol and join others to especially thank our Vice Chancellor for his kindness and his support in the course of the organization of this colloquium. This colloquium is in honor of Professor Ayinla Adebayo Lawal, an eminent scholar who left his mark at the University of Lagos and then here at Anchor University and several other universities with which he was associated when he was alive. The fact that this colloquium is being organized by the University of Lagos and Anchor University is testimony to the impact that Professor Lawal made in the two universities and many lives he touched when he was alive. I want to begin by drawing attention to the lesson in all of this before I say a few things about the colloquium and then, the impact we expect the colloquium to have. And I begin by asking, how do you assess a man's greatness? Eminent historian A.G. Wells says that a man's greatness can best be assessed by, I quote him, needs to grow, and whether he sets others thinking along fresh lines with a vigor that persists after him. End of it. So it isn't so much how much one lives in terms of wealth that defines a man's greatness. Wells was right in saying that a man's greatness can best be measured by what he leads to grow and whether he sets others thinking along fresh lines with a vigor that persists after him. That is why when we live our lives, what we should be thinking about is whether we are able to set others thinking along fresh lines with a vigor that persists after us. How we impact on lives, and how we impact on our environment, and how we leave things behind that will endure. That is what Wells says is, the best way for a man to leave his legacy. And he cites examples. He says people like our Lord Jesus Christ, people like Karl Marx. One reason why their names have endured over time is because they let things to grow and set us as thinking along fresh lines with a vigor that persists after their time. Professor Lawal belongs to this group. He has many works which have impacted on society and how we appreciate society and how life, how improvement in quality of life, can be achieved and things like that. And of course, he made personal impact on individuals. He made personal impact on individuals like me. He will call me, come, and then ask about personal things, and suggest ways by which I could solve problems I face and improve my quality of life. That is one way in which lives have been impacted. He did that. And that is why we are here today to remember him, to celebrate him. Our colloquium today will address some issues that Professor Lawal researched on when he was alive. His inaugural lecture a couple of years ago revolved around corruption. And of course, these are practical things that we are familiar with. Corruption is a problem in our society. How can we tackle it? It's part of the issues that we're discussing today. And of course, development generally, and conflict resolution. All of these are issues that Professor Lawal, at one point or the other, researched into, and that are still with us today, that we need to explore further, so we can better change our society for the better and improve our quality of life. On this note, I want to join the others in the organizing committee, and of course, as the Vice Chancellor and the Deputy Vice Chancellor have said, that you are warmly welcome to this program. We should listen with right attention. I'm sure we will benefit tremendously from the entire program today. I also want to thank our keynote speakers who will soon be on the podium to dissect the theme for the discussion today. I warmly welcome you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the head of the department, Professor David, for that short remark. I hope we also can pick from his remark that we could be great when we live a life that causes others to think through fresh lines. And from that perspective, we put our vigor into it, then we live the life that persists after us. Thank you for that short remark, Professor David Awarawa. I'm honored to welcome us to the next item, which is the citation of Professor Ayinla Lawal. I would like to welcome the head of the Department of Mass Communication at the University of Lagos, Professor S. O. Oyero, for this citation.
The Vice Chancellor and our University, our distinguished visitors, the keynote speaker, Professor Colloquium, ladies and gentlemen, good morning everyone. It is my privilege to read the citation It is my privilege to read the citation of the person that we all gather to honor today. And on this note, I am going to invite the wife of the honoree to please stand up while I read the citation. Please, thank you very much for doing that. Professor Ayinla
Adebayo Lawal was born on 21st April 1948. He hailed from
a lot of local governments of Osun State. He began to make great strides in his academics when he bagged a BA degree
in African history from University of Lagos. That was in 1978. 73 rather, I'm sorry for that, 1973. 7 years after, in 1980, he was awarded a PhD degree in African history at the same University of Lagos. Professor Lawal began his service to humanity by serving as an instructor
during his National Youth Service Program, and that was at Kalabari National College, Bugoma, River State. He went on to also serve as instructor at State Bauchi Teachers College, as well as Our Lady Apostle Secondary School,
Lagos. And then he joined the Department of History, University of Lagos, as a lecturer too in 1979. Through a dint of hard work and high level of responsibility, he rose through the ladder to become a professor in October 1st, 1999. Professor Adebayo Lawal, to his credit, was so many distinctions, awards, scholarships I will just mention a few of these to us. Between 1979 and 1977 and 1979, he got the University of Lagos scholarship for graduate studies in Nigeria and Britain. And then he had the University of Lagos research grant to Britain and Cameroon. He was on the roll of honor Lagos Chamber of Commerce, as well as that of Lagos State College of Education History. Professor Lawal was a senior Fulbright fellow at the University of Wisconsin, Madison in the United States in 1994. He was equally a Rockefeller visiting researcher at University of the Western Cape, South Africa. Moreover, he received the Long and Distinguished Service Award by the University of Lagos. The late Professor Lawal was a team player and a great administrator. He served the University of Lagos in various capacities, and I also mention a few of them. He was a member of Faculty of Arts Seminar Committee, Faculty of Arts Consultancy Committee. He was a member of the editorial board of the Journal of Faculty of Arts. He also worked with the Hall of Residence, Makama Vida Hall, as the Assistant Hall Master. He was a representative of the department at the School of Undergraduate Studies. He was a member of Faculty of Arts Disciplinary Committee for Examination Malpractices. He served as the acting head of the department between 1992 and 1994, and also served as the sub-dean Faculty of Arts between 1995 and 1997, among other positions that he occupied. And eventually in 2013, he was the acting dean of Faculty of Arts. We cannot exhaust the contribution of Professor Lawal as a scholar to his primary place of career, University of Lagos, and to the external context. Professor Lawal supervised many MSc dissertations as well as doctoral theses. He was an expert assessor for several PhD theses, and equally served as external examiner to many universities. He was a member of many professional bodies, few among the American Studies Association of Nigeria, the Historical Society of Nigeria, Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, as an example, yes, and then West African Examination Council, British Council, Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, United States Information Service, Public Affairs Session, among others. Professor Lawal indeed professed and expanded the frontiers of knowledge in his areas of research. His areas of research included African studies, economic history of Africa, African-American studies, tourism and economic development, African diaspora, and population and urban studies. On these areas of research, he published several journal articles, both locally and internationally. Many book chapters, and he authored and co-authored a number of books. It was in 2018 that Professor Lawal joined Anchor University. And just as the Vice Chancellor mentioned, he was the Dean of Faculty of Humanities and selflessly
as part of the management team and members of Senate. Under his leadership, the faculty presented programs for accreditation, and all the programs received full accreditation.
We can go on and on, but time will not permit us. And so I will end this citation with a quote from Benjamin Disraeli, which says, "Read no history." You know, this house is full of
Programs today. I know how you feel about not reading history. Read no history, nothing but biography. For that is life without theory. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor. Head of Department Mass Communication. I'm glad we had that citation, the immense work of the late Professor Ayinla Lawal. And his group also, we want to interrogate more into his scholarship by inviting the keynote speakers so that we could see more of his work and of his scholarship over time and the life he lived here on earth. Join me right now as I invite to the podium a fellow Nigerian academic of letters, former Vice Chancellor, Caleb University, Pro-Chancellor, Queensland University. Let's put our hands together to welcome Professor Ayinla Adebayo Lawal for his keynote address. Vice Chancellor.
Deputy Vice Chancellor, management and students of Anchor University. I hope the visible are allowed to remove this for a minute.
Actually, I want to refer to because I'm not carrying any version of my colleagues and friends from Professor Lagos, Professor Mrs. Professor Ayinla Lawal, and the children that are here. And of course, Bemo, the most famous of the Lawals.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that contrary to
what I've expected, I'm not addressing the bill of this Colloquium. I'm addressing this my own way because I believe that I was inspired to choose this topic because I believe that we need to explore those themes through the life and labor of Professor Adebayo Lawal. Let me also point out that throughout his career,
we never knew him as Ayinla Adebayo Lawal. I'm going to address that here now. He was Adebayo Ayinla Lawal. Maybe this is the Anchor University of presenting here. He wasn't presented this to all his life at Lagos. And I'm the person to say that because I know him between 1986
and pastor. So let me just go straight, please. I will be more than 20 minutes because I prepared a speech which I must read. So please, you have to bear me for the next 30 or so minutes. But I'll try. Let me begin by thanking God for making this occasion possible and bringing together family, colleagues, friends, and former students to honor a departed father, colleague, friend, teacher, and mentor. On this retirement in 2018, the Department of History and Strategic Studies at Lagos organized
a similar event to appreciate Professor Adebayo Lawal, whose life and labor we are celebrating today. On behalf of his friends, colleagues and students, I thank the initiators of this event and the institution, Anchor University, especially the Vice Chancellor and Management, the Faculty of Humanities, and the Department of History and Philosophy Studies. On a personal note, I am deeply grateful for the honor of presenting the keynote address at this eponymous colloquium in his honor. On occasions honoring a departed colleague of many years, one instinctively remembers the first and last encounters with the disease. My first encounter with Dr. Lawal, as we knew him then, was in 1986 during the conference on the history of the Post of Lagos State, organized by the Public Street University of Lagos. By the way, his name rang a bell because there was another Dr. Lawal, author of a popular textbook on economics. There was also Ayinla Lawal, an Air Commodore and military-era Prince of Sports. A recent Google search also reveals two other Professor Ayinla Lawals, one in the Faculty of Education, University of Ilorin, and the other in the Faculty of Science, Humanities University. My first port of call for coming to the University of Lagos. We also have a commissioner in Oyo State, so named, and a medical doctor based in the US, sharing the same Adebayo Lawal. Altogether, I discovered over 70 Adebayo Lawals on LinkedIn. The name appears to be a franchise of sorts. However, our own Ayinla Lawal opted for the use of initials, adopting A.A. Lawal as his signature name in all but a few of his publications. And by way of digression, I want to advise young lecturers here, brand yourself. As a man who has been Ibalola, all his publications got the same Ibalola. I have adopted the same name throughout my career. Some editors have taken you out by just putting A there, which of course I've always objected to. Have a name that runs through your publications. Creative, it's a brand for yourself. So Adebayo Lawal chose A.A. Lawal. So you can't mistake him anymore for all those other Lawals. That said, I was a young lecturer at the University of Osu, attending my first conference presentation when I met in 1986. It was my informal introduction to the university, which I joined as lecturer grade 2 years later. I was more familiar with Dr. Sake Ifalo, who had come over to assist us at Osu. I did not get to know Dr. Lawal as he then was, but met him and his wife at the presentation of the book emanating from the 1986 conference at Lagos State House of Assembly Complex at Kalausa in 1987. My last encounter with him was in March 2020 at his temporary residence at Olodeyaba, when a team led by the head department, then head department, Professor here, visited me. Though our host was spontaneously affected by what turned out to be a terminal illness, he never looked like dying soon, so soon, as we had the spirits about him. And we discussed that then before we parted ways. The next we heard, to our great amazement, was that I passed on. The slack development, compounded by the severe restrictions on movements and gatherings occasioned by the severity of the COVID-19 pandemic is May 2020. The rest of this address will recall or reminisce on my relationship with him and highlight lessons from his life scholarship. Entitled this address, Adebayo Lawal, Reminiscences and Reflections. Adebayo Lawal, Reminiscences and Reflections. I think it can be projected because I sent a copy this morning to Dr. Zemeka on the AUL website. I sent it at 3 a.m. this morning. The first section provides recollections of the personal interactions with him in Nigeria and various countries on the platform of various conferences and organizations. This is followed by a more academic section which reflects on the academic contributions of our protagonists and lessons for us. Please bear with me if my recollections, particularly for those in my department or the family, are too familiar or boring. I just wish to document
aspects of the social history of a professional historian. And I'll begin with reminiscence. This is not a biography of Professor Lawal, a task that future historians will undertake. My task here is to undertake memorable moments that we shared as colleagues in the department and our joint trips to places in Nigeria, Spain, the United Kingdom, South Africa, Israel, and the United States of America. On joining the department, I was already acquainted with Mr. Peter Dr. family, better known to us as Oga family, and Dr. later Professor Babatunde Adebayo, that is Baba Agiri as we call him, a fellow Iran woman and doctoral supervisor of Dr. Lawal, himself a 1972 PhD graduate of the University of Wisconsin and Madison, who was the unofficial dean of economic history in the department. At the time we had units in the department, had international relations, so had economic history, then we had the others. The others being where we have people like Mr. Lawal. However, I took to Dr. Lawal, and please note this, he was known to everyone as Oga Lawal, but we also called him Ayinla behind his back whenever he did something we didn't like. I took it because he was closer to my generation than Baba Agiri, and for the fact that he was the most senior, self-confessed, born-again Christian around. I myself got converted in July 1988, and it was in that year that I undertook trips to Kenya and Ilefe. In Dr. Lawal's Ilan registered Ojova before that was there. I have been to Kenya was the purpose of visiting the Shoko, that is Governor Library, housed in the big city's residence. It was an exploration trip, and we took time to ascertain the wholeness of the library. I compiled a list of interesting material and so did Dr. Lawal. We discovered several interesting materials, one of which was a report on a federal establishment, which was too bulky for you to photocopy for the still at the time. It took me 2 decades to reproduce that report. Okay, one of my former students at Agoewe. I will not disclose that report because I'm keeping it, I want to develop some kind of it. And I don't want anybody to steal my thunder, but if you are there, go to Shokulu Library, find the report there, among hundreds and thousands of papers. The other trip that was undertook in 1988 was to the Award University to present papers in the Colloquium, just like this one, in honor of Dr. Ewo Ajoni, who had written his PhD on Northern Nigeria. The paper that I presented at OAU on that occasion later became my first international publication in 1991. At this juncture, as I digress into the social life of our subject, that is Ayinla Adebayo Lawal. Apart from making up to him as his senior colleague in economic history, I have also been influenced by the spiritual experience that he shared with me, 3 of which I will relate here.
First, he recalled an incident in his 40 years as Aaron when he joined friends to play pranks by hiking a ride on a truck that took his sugar. Unconsciously the driver, unaware of his easy passengers, began to speed out of town. The boys then jumped off the speeding truck, but young Adebayo landed badly and passed out. As Peter recalled, he found himself running in a dark underground tunnel at supersonic speed, only to be spun around by a blinding light. He then returned to his body, only to discover that he had been given for dead.
I was being revived. You only heard shouts of Otiji, Otiji. For those who don't know, he has revived where he came to. That experience gave me an idea of what happens at death to those whose souls do not rise. God had to send a powerful light that cut through the darkness of Hades to return him to life. Fortunately, his life was spared on application, and he would place that experience in context when he became sick. The second experience that Professor Lawal shared with me was the dream he had in which one of his mother's friends sent him poisoned food, which he declined, on seeing the manipulated intent behind it. As a young militant deliverer, he visited his mother the next day and met that same friend there. When the latter woman greeted him cheerfully, he rebuked her for making an attempt on his life. The old woman admitted guilt by apologizing to him. A third example. In 1988, when he applied to travel to London to collect archival material for a book on that's Lagos School of Commerce, he was denied permission by the constituted authority. Lawal told me that he took a spiritual view of that opposition and then prayed and fasted to dislodge the spirit behind it. Yes, the approval was then given, which, as he made me understand, should be the attitude to such matters. That is, anyone behaving in a negative fashion is controlled by a spirit, which is the real enemy to attack. That taught me that when human beings behave counterintuitively, we should focus on what drives them, rather than leave them as enemies. That said, it was in the realm of scholarly professor that Professor Ayinla Lawal and I had the closest interaction. In Nigeria, we were active members of the American Studies Association, ASA, of which he later became the youngest member of the executive as acting secretary from 1997 to 1999. The association was driven mainly by alumni of American universities, that is to say, Professors Richard Lani and Agiri, as well as Professors Musho Akiri, NCG2, and Shamsuddin Amali. Lawal presented the paper at its inaugural conference at Los Lagos 1989. I attended that conference, remember I was also a minister at that time, but did not present the paper on the subsequent conferences, including the one that the apartheid regime aborted after we had made a long trip to Kaduna and slept in our lodges in 1995. Lawal was the regular paper presenter at this and many other professional conferences, including the Congress of the Historical Society of Nigeria. Our participation in foreign conferences fostered closer social interaction as we lodged in close vicinity and presented papers on the same panels. In August 1998, we participated in the World Economics Congress in Madrid, Spain. The Congress is the largest local gathering of economic students and it holds a 4-year interval. The next Congress was originally scheduled to hold this event, but we had to move the local organizing committee. First, a chief of venue to Madrid, where we arrived in the evening of the week of the week. On getting to the venue, directly opposite the famous Santiago Bernabeu Stadium, some of you are fans of Atlanta Football with Yona Stadium, we did not meet the bishops who were supposed to take us to hotel accommodation. We learned later that they should after we left. We then decided to lodge in the nearby Navarre Hotel on Paseo de Castellana of Avenue Bravo Murillo. To save money, we shared a double bedroom for the night and got separate rooms the following day at the Colloquium Mayo Universitario Shaminade. There, I took my first bite of octopus among several delicious meals served in the hostel cafeteria. At the close of the conference, we both chose to join the social party to Segovia, where we saw a Roman-era aqueduct. I got the photograph this morning. Unfortunately, I couldn't have that to scan there. I printed them for you to see. A Roman-era aqueduct that supplied water to the city a millennium ago. And survivors of Muslim architecture in that time. I took many photographs, including those at Segovia and the two leading buildings in Madrid, which Professor Lawal particularly cherished. Go to his photograph collection so that I'm going to see that photograph here. The buildings are on both sides of the road in Madrid. They are linear, almost like the linear of Pisa. Very unique. One thing I observed during our stay in Spain was Lawal's love of adventure, born of an inquiry mind and athleticism. As he trekked from our hostel to the venue, simply to know the ground. This was part of the free trade tickets that the organizer gave us to explore the city. I once joined him on that trip, that is to check the venue, and saw that it was shorter than I thought. But he always took me out work at it so that I could not endure a long trek. Such was his physical state at that time, even that he was once an avid lawn tennis player, frequenting the courts close to the Faculty of Education at Finland. That said, our stay in Spain left an enduring mark not only in the exotic things that we brought back. For example, we got it correct, what we got T-Pex is unique, I still have it. And I've not seen anything like it. We got footwear, we took photographs, but our fascination with the names of the train stations that we frequented on our daily trips to the conference endured. For years after the conference, we always saluted each other by shouting, Foy Para and Aluchi. That was what Mr. Lawal prepared. I would say something like, Pinchi Review, Gregorio Marayo, Pinchi Review, Quattro Pamela, these are some train stations in Madrid. Or maybe the train announcements, the trains will be going from city to city. So we didn't quite understand what they said, but at least we got the last two words. The announcement got like this. Roxy Meister, Kabir, correspondencia, linear uno. Correspondencia will mean this is a place we change over. Linear uno, of course, means line one, because in my field, at that time, the train lines were not blue or yellow. Line one, uno. Line two goes. Then 3, then 4, 4, like that. Our next stops in the United States, Austin, Texas 2003, I have a photograph here, London 2008, Tel Aviv and Beersheba, Israel 2012, and St. Louis, Africa 2012, were full of sweet memories. After the Morning in Africa conference at the British Museum in 2008, I invited him to my mother-in-law's residence, where I usually lodged. And for years afterwards, Mr. Lawal will recall the hot tabla that the old man gave us on that cold evening. In South Africa, we attended the representative papers at our joint second World Economic History Congress, for which we also engaged sponsorship. In the same year, we were in Israel to present papers at the conference on African entrepreneurship. Unlike my earlier visit in 2009, when I was doing the
we were quite particular with the universities. Much more than academic meetings.
The campuses of Tel Aviv University and the Ben-Gurion University of Negev, some 40 to 60 kilometers apart, we spent time in Jerusalem, where my earlier trip visit and the help of guides helped us to make the best of our tour of the whole city. As you can imagine, I have photographs of this place. My social interactions with Mr. Lawal revealed certain habits, including his attitude to life. One thing that always struck me about him was his very methodical organization of his books, family papers, and financial affairs. He would always locate any book on his shelf or inside his cheap cabinet where he kept his most special books. He never had to ransack his office to duplicate anything. His handling of money was legendary. As keeper of the capital funds, he carefully organized money disbursement with the cash relevant papers neatly put together in a folded cloth bag. He was a most correct person in the handling of official and personal funds. I once told him that even in the worst of times, when we had prolonged strikes and increased salaries, he never complained of lack of funds. He simply laughed at the observation. One reason for that, I guess, was his personal discipline and modesty. He was not ostentatious and never indulged himself. He also did not subscribe to what we call a place culture. To illustrate, he once took me to a toddler at the Faculty of Technology who not only mended shoes, but refitted oversized shoes that would have been discarded. Only a Mr. Lawal will discover such an artisan, and the indication of the length that he went to get the best service provider in anything that he did, and always at an affordable cost. The way he handled his chauffeur and mobile cars indicated that he paid attention to every detail and was an exponent of maintenance culture.
Our friend, Mr. Lawal was with us based on an episode of this itself. He now came to Lagos and had vacancies at the professional level. And I took the opportunity to him, urging him to apply for the full position. I was convinced that it was only qualified. Having
so for 3 years. I was shocked to discover at the end of the exercise that he did not bother to apply, whereas another person was suspended of 6 years and he did so successfully. Another indication that he was somewhat too careful about taking risks is that he never ran for election as Dean of Arts when his peers and local enemies in the faculty took their hats to the ring. Ironically, what others failed to achieve through the ballot box was thrust to the stars in 2013. When he reached for the faculty vacant during the final year of the incumbent. Lawal was appointed acting Dean for 6 months, February to July 2013. The course was the oldest serving professor in the faculty. Just as he was super aggressively, he was willing to support anyone in power. Lawal had a reputation for discretion, boldness, and conservatism. He was one of the elders that I regularly consulted when I was head of department, and there was a seamless transition when he took back from me in August 1, 2004. Unfortunately, his first act in office was to arrange the funeral of a colleague who passed on at dawn that day. Lawal was historic. He handled challenges that he faced with equanimity and enviable fortitude. Though he had been a student lecturer in 1987 and an associate professor in 1993, he did not stampede the department or petition against successive members of parliament, including his kinsman, Babagiri, or Professor Shuru, or Professor Ashwani, or the days of the faculty for the apparent delay in attaining the full professorship, which as just said now, eventually came in 1999. He had no entitlement mentality and was not willing to rock the boat. So far, I presented to you, and in most cases, aspects of his life and times that many of you did not even know about. But this came out of decades of interaction, and I want to highlight his academic life as a scholar and researcher. Adebayo Lawal graduated with his second class of honors degree from the department as I've been told in 1973. Ironically, he did not set out to major in history. English was his first choice, but he was forced to abandon the discipline because of the possibility of the particular nature, which he felt would ruin his academic career. The face off with that lesson was apparently caused by the assertiveness of the young Lawal, who was a campus radical, donning a red beret and spouting some revolutionary slogans. However, Lawal was not totally lost to English, as anyone who read his work, his papers would testify. His publications and oral presentations projected his command of written and spoken English. That placed him during his stint as postgrad fellow in the United States of South Africa and wherever he made presentations. Drinkers tried themselves on their taste in wines, which they could judge by taste and smell. In like fashion, Lawal was a connoisseur of books, which he bought and stocked. Many of us admire his large collection of books. Incidentally, as we have just been told, all donated to Anchor University. And that sped us the argument of going to the library.
Thank you very much. We needed books in the university, but at that time,
his books sped us the agony, the trouble of the library, on buying our own copies. I don't know whether we're wiser by doing that. He bought books anywhere and everywhere on diverse subjects. It was from him that I got a good introductory text that facilitated my transition into Indian history. Both Lawal and family
records the activities of the department that were arguing because they had an unrivaled collection on economic history and modern studies. Lawal also had a rich collection of books on marriage.
Like any other academic, Professor Ayinla Lawal is best defined by his publications, which drew on his doctoral research on the financial administration of Nigeria between 1900 and 1945. His 1981 PhD thesis was therefore a trailblazer, coming years before Professors Adebayo of Ife in 1986 and Chibuke LSC in 1997 completed theirs on Nigeria's post-1950s financial history and the banking sector in the colonial and post-independence periods respectively. Lawal was a generation of Professors Ayinla Adebayo Lawal. Botonis was my earliest professor at Japan. I was his first graduate supervisor, and Story Falola, who completed their graduate training between 1979 and 1981. His PhD was the oldest on economic history by an alumnus of the department.
That is Ayinla. He was also the first alumnus of the department to attain the professorship, and the first to be subsequently the head of the department in 2004 and also after
many years and of course we saw the of art from 1995. Students of Professor Lawal are in a position to judge his record as a lecturer
as professor. But it struck me as a Indian teacher who record today, really prepared to teach, I was habitually punctual. He was a vastly experienced teacher, having been taught and mentored by great historians, professors, Agiri, and what in the department, my famous Professor Adebayo, who had taught in the department in the 1970s. At postgraduate seminars, Professor Lawal had to resolve thorny issues, given the interest he developed in understanding and applying theories and concepts, which most historians of this generation considered an irritant or a distraction. Professor Lawal was a thorough and peace professor. I should know that because we post-supervised 3 PhD candidates, Olufoya again, and Uchi with both of them are professors, and Anthony Ali. But we post-supervised Mrs. Goseptala, Dr. Goseptala, with Dr. Family. As coordinator of the postgraduate program for a brief period of 1983, when he was acting head of department, and much later as head of department in 2004, I sent problematic students to him, knowing that he had a way of breaking them in. I know of at least one difficult case that he helped us to manage. His most outstanding supervisor so far is for your game. I don't know whether he's here. Where is he now? When I wrote this, I didn't know whether he's here. Let me read this now. So it's about what we need to hear now. So, his most successful supervisor so far, maybe tomorrow, is again, whose epochal rise to the top is unrivaled in the generation. Professor again has excelled in path-breaking research and publications and had a most successful tenure as provost of his alma mater at the College of Education. Another of Lawal's PhD supervisors, Dr. Adebayo, focused on budget. I know, I can see his face. Where's the one? Yeah, it looks like him. It looks like the governor of Crossing State. So, Obiemi focused on budget, a highly specialized area of financial economic history. He is undoubtedly Lawal's linear successor in the field of Nigerian financial economic history. Incidentally, Obiemi's work, like that of Professor David Awora over there, won the best PhD thesis in Nigerian universities in 2012. Lawal's candidates were M.S.H. Awa in Cameroon, J.J. Oyemi Akomri, and C.C. Agbake. In terms of these publications, Lawal made his greatest contribution to knowledge in the field of financial economic history. When you get to read this paper, I've cited all those papers. So if you have a copy of it, you can look at those publications. His oldest publication appeared in 1984, significantly on Nigeria's financial sector. The recognition of his expertise was invited to contribute the article on pre-colonial interregional financial flows in Africa in a special issue of the popular academic journal Tariq on African economic history. In 1987, below, Lawal contributed 3 chapters in 2 landmark books in which he made original contributions based upon material collected from the Public Record Office in London. These were the chapter in the book on history of Lagos State, I mentioned that, and of course 2 chapters in the book edited by Ayinla, Britain and Nigeria, Exploitation or Development, published by London, by Z of London, 1987. Maybe I should just read the titles of those chapters. Just this one, I'll mention the others. Number 1, industrialization as policy. You find that on pages 114 to 124. The other one, sharing profits with subjects. The colonial fiscal policy on pages 186 to 189. Both were path-breaking collections of essays by Nigeria's best and brightest scholars. It is worth stressing that while some today continue to teach at the windmills and fail to grasp the imperative of publishing author. Lawal had published across borders as far back as 1987. He was continuing a trend in our department. That is to say, we have to publish locally and of course globally. And that's what has led us to the department. In 1989 alone, Lawal had 5 publications, including 3 chapters in a landmark publication on the iconic Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, edited by a renowned professor of public administration, that is Mr. Colloquium. The chapters were 3, 2 of them important with his mentee. I don't know whether Dr. Ogunlola is here this morning. Dr. Bosa Bukola, or how will be. But he himself published another chapter in that book. Ayinla Lawal was the economic historian par excellence. His publications covered many sectors. So he covered many sectors of the domestic economy. I have a lot of papers on that. My photo, currency, external trade and government policy. He also added large operations from the West African currency policy. That was the central bank of West African colony, which is not colonies at the time. It was the body that issued currencies at the time. And the politics of security. Security, of course, is the difference between the paper value that we see and the intrinsic value of that currency. That was so much power. And I took most of that to be the first paper on that subject around here. In 2 publications,
we had a challenge to actually reduce the currency. However, because we said that the bank was the biggest portion of the papers by any Nigerian on colonial
Nigerian financial management.
We have even in the formation, the covers the residents of body finance and UABs here, such as debt servicing within Nigeria.
And foreign trade policy in post-independence era. A striking feature of Lawal's forensic inquiry into Nigerian and comparative public finance is that he focused also on specific public institutions. For example, he published articles on the financial administration of the military and the Nigerian 2 strategic pillars of the colonial economy. This indicates his competence in undertaking studies in both mega and micro history. Some people are problems with that. Some people are micro historians, they can't go beyond looking at little case studies. Some people do the mega, they look at bigger subjects. Some people are able to do synthesis, they are also able to do all of those. I just want to avoid that.
We also address the financial implications of the amalgamation of the deal. To be sure, Lawal did not limit himself to
During history. In a major article, he highlighted the impact of the structural adjustment program SAP on the Nigerian agricultural sector. It is worth noting that Lawal extended his focus on financial history. This is important to other African countries, especially the management territories of Cameroon and Namibia, which were German colonies taken over by the nations after the First World War. His defender visiting his fellowship at Costa Western Cape, South Africa, in 1984, enabled him to research the topic financial administration in Namibia and Southern Cameroon, while archival work in Nigeria and Britain provided material on Cameroon. In several articles, Lawal examined the financial administration in 2 mandated territories. In 3 publications, he explored the financial implications of a proposed Southern Cameroon region in Nigeria, the importance of Nigeria-Cameroon financial relations, and Southern Cameroon's financial contribution to the Second World War effort. His article on Namibia examined the mandated territories economy.
So now I'm going to focus on Nigeria, Uganda, West Africa, Central Africa, and Southern Africa. That's not all. His work on American history extended his focus
beyond Africa. This drew on his experience as Fulbright senior professor, senior fellow at the University of Wisconsin and Madison in 1991, with a research focus on American historiography and American economic history. And of course, he also drew on his membership of ASEAN. His publications explored the impact of American influence on the practice of Christianity in Nigeria, compared post-Civil War construction and integration with the United States in Nigeria, after American experience in the U.S. economy between the 1930s and 1970s, the missionary factor of the U.S. foreign policy, the economy and the political process in Nigeria and the United States,
the management of wealth and poverty in America and the United States, cultural links between America and Nigeria, and lessons for African studies from American studies. Lawal's versatility took him beyond economic history into social and cultural history, including indigenous building, higher education, population, and migrations. His research, therefore, struggled the invisible divide between economic and social history, as exemplified by his publications on markets and street trading in colonial Lagos. Like other historians, Professor Lawal published on the practice of insurance craft, that is historiography. In several publications, he examined the following themes: the use of oral traditions, the challenges of interdisciplinarity and theory in the light of history, traditional methods of preserving history and customs, and the state of the art of historical research in Nigeria. In spite of our long association and our common interest in trade and finance, Professor Lawal and I never bothered any publication. However, we jointly edited the textbook on economic history that is used extensively across Nigerian universities. In 2015,
we published the collection of the research and in 2006 we delivered the website with
the first in the department since Professor Emeritus Agriculture Group delivered his in 1998. I want to conclude this. I need to conclude now. As we celebrate the life and death of Professor Adebayo Lawal, we need to reflect on his legacy as a person and as a marketer. After listening to this address, many would wonder why they did not know this much in Lawal's lifetime. A possible explanation for that is that the man was not given to self-promotion. Not many knew that he was so well published. I myself did not get the real range. I had an idea. But when I went through this, I now saw that let's move on. Not many knew that he was so well published and that his publications are kept in print. Listen to me. Almost every year, between 1987 and 2020, when he passed on, his last work was one in a book edited by Musaki on land and development in Lagos.
And as you know, we can say that 2018 was the last 2 years in which
he experienced relief from failing health. One striking lesson from his career is the need for rigor in research publishing. Lawal maintained a high standard of scholarship right from the 1980s to retired. The secret of his success was a combination of basic research, sober reflection, diligent analysis, and careful presentation. He also emphasized engagement with theories and concepts. He always said that. Second, he epitomized prudence and moderation in all things, and practice what he professed. His financial prudence reflected his expertise in financial administration. I also know that some accountants, with due respect, are also some of the biggest things. But Lawal handled, he taught his research financial management, he practiced it, and we are now living principles. Beyond his financial prudence, Lawal also worked in terms of morality. Throughout his began by knowing him, he was never associated with any woman apart from his wife.
his career was devoid of any difference.
Hence, he was well positioned to attack corruption, the subject of the inaugural lecture. Yet, for those also knew him very well, Lawal was often a maverick, put in positions that diverged and belonged to other people. That of those situations say, will I stop again? Regarding his intellectual areas, we should recognize that his focus on financial administration and corruption continues to have public policy implications. He addressed issues at the heart of good governance by historicizing them. His publications raise questions about how well we have managed and continue to manage or mismanage our public funds, especially through budgeting, appropriation, and funds disbursement. So far, it is clear that we have not got it right, given the mismatch between advertised budgets and the deliverables. The other question is how to tackle the monster of corruption, which, as Lawal demonstrated, has roots in the colonial era.
The mismanagement of public funds through misapplication, that is to say, funding worthless white elephant projects, and misappropriation, that is, outright corruption, ranging from extorting kickbacks from commanding contractors to the diversion of funds into phantom projects or even to so-called abandoned projects. That is central to Nigeria's avoidable underdevelopment. For as long as the twin evils persist, so long will Lawal's scholarly contributions and research questions continue to haunt us as a nation. In a better country, Lawal's publications, especially Sinopra, should have triggered serious behavior by the government. And here my footnote says, if you go to pages 22 to 24 of that Sinopra, you're going to see the recommendations. I don't know if anybody ever read that. Recall that immediately Professor Emeritus Ayinla delivered his epoch-making inaugural lecture on artificial boundaries in 1984, which contained landmark policy recommendations. He was invited for discussion by the Chief of Staff Special Headquarters, Brigadier Tunde Diago. That was the background to the establishment of the National Boundaries Commission. Today, the poor reading culture of Nigerians has widened the gap between academia on the one hand and the public, private sector, and policymakers on the other hand. The challenge is for Lawal's successors to continue the fight for transparency in funds management, project execution, and optimal service delivery. Hopefully, the likes of Dr. Kinjo Koyemi will not suffer the same fate. Lawal is no longer with us, but we will always recall his passion for academic excellence and his mannerisms, including his characteristic cliches and expressions, such as his prophecy. Something happened here and there, that was very perfect. Then his constant challenge, people should meditate. He always said that you should meditate on things. And his tendency to punctuate his remark in when I just went there, I said that it's but don't forget that. And his famous prayer line, he said, Father Mary God, Father Mary God.
In the end, it can be said that
to that extent, Adebayo Ayinla Lawal says so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Colloquium. We can't appreciate you enough for that transnational history records of reminiscing of Professor A.A. Lawal. We've got so much to pick from the lecture, and we're glad to also integrate and interrogate more on the material we delivered today. Stepping on Professor David Awarawa's speech, Professor A.A. Lawal lived to grow. And whether he sets others thinking, Professor okay, whether he sets others thinking along fresh lines with a vigor that persists after him. Let's put on a round of applause for the keynote speakers. Thank you very much. We are making progress. Just a quick one. I want to recognize the presence of a professor who will be giving the lead paper today. Sorry, I missed. That's Professor Colloquium again, former provost at the College of Education, your state. From your welcome. You need to wait to listen to this afternoon. We also have with us the HOD, History and International Studies of UNIOSUN, Dr. Babatunde Decker. You're welcome. Thank you. Also gracing this occasion today, we have in our midst the Dean, Faculty of Humanities, McPherson University, Osun State, Professor Kenneth. Sorry, Congo State,
Professor Kenneth Owoko, Prof. Owoko. Thank you. We also have with us Dr. Irina Osemega from History Department, University of Lagos. You're welcome, madam. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the next item. I would like to welcome on board Professor Rufus Taiwo Akiyele, the former health department for his key attendance. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. The VC, Mrs. Lawal, all other protocols to be observed. Well, I'm not an economic historian, and I have no apology. I've always told my friends that I consider economic history on the soft side of history. History is essentially about politics, and unknown to them, Ogadawa was first and foremost administrative historian. He was an African historian and he was interested in intergroup relations. And I was interested in fact, the last publication was on intergovernmental relations, which I had the privilege to my friends. Today I've chosen to honor him with a paper titled Nigeria-Ghana Relations. He was interested in Ghana, I'm interested in Ghana. And of course, why am I choosing this? You talk of African hospitality. And when hospitality is becoming permanent in CBC, I think you need to investigate that. And if possible, give some suggestions on how to resolve the conflict. It's on the screen, Nigeria-Ghana relations, exploring the intersection of history and politics. I will quickly run through the slides. I'm not giving an address. They are giving an address. Well, in international relations, bilateralism, is conduct of relations, whether it's political, economic, cultural, between two countries. And in fact, the primary aim of establishing diplomatic missions, or what we call embassy, is not to promote dialogue and cooperation. But in the case of Nigeria and Ghana, since their independence, it has been more of conflict rather than cooperation. Even though you have occasional instances of recruitment. And we have recent examples. Harassment of Nigerian traders, including blocking of their shops, for contradicting what is called the Ghana trade law, which has escalated since 2008. Well, you can put that one aside. And not too long ago, in 2020, they went as far as demolishing a part of the Nigerian High Commission there, which is contrary to all diplomatic norms. And these aberrations are mere episodes in the long history of mutual suspicion and rivalry. The presentation is in 3 parts. One, we are looking at the roots of diplomatic row between Nigeria and Ghana. And then we are saying we need to move away from that, charting a new course with the compass of history. And of course, what is the use of talking and analyzing a problem? You cannot say this is the way. I know some historians say, you are not an administrator, you are not a political scientist. Just tell the history. But what use is the history that you are telling? If it doesn't impact positively on how to move the situation forward. Looking at the root of the problem. It started with way back at the concept of independence. Today we know who that became the African Union. But the politics of forming that union divided Nigeria and Ghana and placed them at the head of opposing camps. Ghana, the first in Black Africa, became independent in 1957, the Black Star. And Kwame Nkrumah wanted what we could call the United States of Africa, dynamic, strong enough to contend at the international arena. There were people who suspected that he wanted to use this project, the African integration project, as a platform to transmute himself or whatever it is into an emperor of Africa. And at the end of this other group that was suspicious was Nigeria, on account of the size and the population and the conservative nature of the ruling elite. So those ones form two power blocks. And of course you had the third arm, the Francophone countries. Well, Africa, we're in Africa, they would prefer to remain with France. And it's still today the same thing. They are more with France than the rest of Africa. So you see it there, the three blocks. Even though on the long run, the OAU was created in 1963 as a compromise, but that did not erase the history of slave suspicion. Then came 1962. Many of us know of the AG crisis of 1962 and what they followed. Of course, they set up administrative inquiry and there was crisis. And some escaped to Ghana, people SKO, Kuku and others. And there was the suspicion by the federal government, BC-led government, that they wanted to use Ghana as a training ground to invade Nigeria. And it now moved from mere suspicion to accusation and counter-accusation. But that was at the governmental level. What brought the rivalry to the level of the masses was the sporting arena, as well as the deportation of citizens of the other country. In those days, when Nigeria and Ghana were playing football, it was not just ordinary football. For the footballers, it was do or die. And for the nationalities, it was national pride that was at stake. Even today, Ghana will prefer to support the opponent of Nigeria. And like I said, what actually injected poison to the relationship was the deportation of citizens of the other country. It started in 1969 when the Kofi Busia, November, sent 250,000 illegal aliens from Ghana. Of course, other people to police Magai, people from everywhere. The majority of them were Nigerians, Yoruba, and also people who had been living in Ghana. I used to notice one of my colleagues, I called him over Ghana, because they used this trailer too, that they used it as a transporting car to bring him to Nigeria. And he told me that he covered them in the primary school for about a week. And today he still recorded. Like I said, that was one day. And then in 1983, during the Shagari, you know of the Ghana Motor. Between 900,000 and 1.2 million Ghanaians were sent away. Why this deportation? The official explanation is that we want to preserve jobs for our citizens and we want to get rid of criminals. But even when they deported them, the situation still remains the same. And in March 1980, many Nigerians again were deported for various reasons. You know, Nigerians are abroad, yes, but all the same, for overstaying, for cyber crimes, or whatever. But one of the deportees has this to say. He says, the problem is that they were jealous of the progress of Nigerians in that country. As they were always saying to our hearing, you came to Ghana with maths, and now you're sleeping on mattresses. And the situation continued like that, even until 2001, when somebody felt there was a need, this suspicion and interest is getting too much. Let's organize the joint Nigeria-Ghana worship service. That one was said at Okota to put an end to this tit for tat affair. And it was there after the prayer. And I know God has us pray, only that we are not doing it right. And he said, well, this Ghana will go back. willingness, even limit, to become Nigeria-Ghana back. And Leader Zaki, who was present there, also talked about the importance of cooperation in the spirit of integration. And like I said, even though we have the official explanation for the deportation, but we're still where we are. Apart from that psychological feeling, oh yes, we are sending them away. And then people are all humiliating. When Shakari said, oh God, Ghana will go, he thought the dog would just be there and everything would be okay. It's one thing to blame the enemy for whatever problem that we're having. But if you refuse to solve the problem, even after the aliens are gone, you are still there with them. And like I said, concerning Nigeria seems to have been on the receiving end. And many people associate or link this with the poor leadership of the country. We are being leaders. If we are able to assert ourselves, they will not just be treating us anyhow. Like the Guardian editorial of 6 March 2019 says, Nigeria has stood low and allow ourselves to be trampled upon by different countries. And it continues. Just apparent failure of diplomacy has made many countries to have the audacity to see Nigeria as cargo that will be bundled anytime, with or without the new business, and deported back to Nigeria. It's very important. The experiences of all the deportees, both in Nigeria and in Ghana, have been studied. You have Rashid Olaniyi for the Yoruba returnees for Ghana, and the right for those that were deported from Nigeria to Ghana. And another root of the problem is the imposition of ban on goods or commodities from the other country, in spite of the ECOWAS protocol on free movement and trade, and in spite of the numerous bilateral trade agreements. For instance, in 2005, the Obasanjo regime banned 96 items from Ghana. If you buy 96 items, then how many remaining? And this was all under pressure from the Chamber of Commerce. Well, what do we expect Ghana to do? Fold down and say we're from Nigeria. 2006, Ghana prohibited also some Nigerian goods. And from 2007, you have complaints of harassment of Nigerian traders over the implementation of what is called the Ghana Investment Promotion Council Law at 478 of 1984. That says if you want to invest in Ghana, you must pay $300,000. If they have that way, they are not sure they will run it. Not only that, if you want to open common shop, you must at least employ 10 Ghanaians. And if you want to resolve this crisis, well, the Ghana says, no problem, we are not going to amend this law. And you people are amending. You have so many to-play businesses. All you need to do is come together. Amalgamate to be able to fulfill that condition. And you have called Ghana to review the environment integrity of ECOWAS, and as recently as 2018, President Buhari met President Nana Akufo-Addo during the General Assembly meeting in New York. See, well, this is a major problem. And the Ghanaian president said, look, we are not targeting people from the country. All we want to do is that let them comply with the law. So as of now, this problem is still hanging. Well, and for my own little way, there are 3 ways you can handle that. Refer that dispute to ECOWAS for resolution. 2, adopt the principle of reciprocity. 3, 4, and what more importantly, create a conducive environment for investment in Nigeria. If this condition, if that condition is there, they will not be running over to Ghana. And another thing another part of the problem is how to do with the conflict over the leadership of ECOWAS. This kind of had been created by all the members of ECOWAS to step in to see where you have problem, ceasefire, create enabling environment for the conduct of peaceful elections. Incidentally, the first leader was from Ghana. Then he was removed barely after 3 months because it was under his nose that ex-Sergeant Lowe of ex-President of Nigeria was arrested and murdered. And after that, there was the problem. What should be the nationality of the successor? Even though Nigeria was barely about 70% or more of the population. But ever since, all the other commanders were from Nigeria. And much more important is the attempt by Nigeria to play the role of the champion of democracy. And incidentally, this came in at the time the Iran stayed the coup. Nigeria were trying to hand over to Shagari. And this man took over again. So it set a wrong signal. And that was why throughout the period, Obasanjo was critical, Shagari was very critical. And throughout, even though they celebrated rallies, for us there, it was another thing. In fact, there was the scare of Nigerian invasion of Ghana in order to reinstate Dr. Lehman. And that was it. And we all know, and another thing has to do with unfair comparison between Nigeria and Ghana. Even you and me to do that. But then I start working well in Nigeria, go to Ghana and see how things are done. And not only Ghana, you see, comparison is good. If it's said, but when the motive is negative, then you have a problem. When there was ASU, and then people are saying, go to Ghana and see how things are done. And we usually do. Dr. Sir, the education minister, he said, well, you people are fond of making comparison with Ghana. The whole of university lecturers in Ghana, not enough to fill one university in Nigeria. But with that of the defense ministry, he said the whole armed forces in Ghana, not enough just for 2 brigades in Nigeria. Andorra, Imuni, said the whole of Ghana, it's not a population, it's not more of state. You can see, and once even the whole water you generate in Ghana, it's not enough to flood the toilet in Lagos. And so, it got to the time that the champion editorial had to caution that Ghana should want the people to, and there are people who have also said, look, even academics, people looking at the university, the antithesis, that look, we see ourselves as a big man of Africa. When you check the indices of growth and development, in fact, that I should go to Ghana. And, well, it has not all been negative, except that even the positive aspect has been overshadowed by this negative component. For instance, in February 1989, there was Community of Free Movement of Great, which to increase intra-African trade. There was MOU between the security exchanges of both countries. There was suggestion for TV and radio program in 1984, just to change the mindset. In fact, the Minister of Information in 1984 says concerning the problem between Nigeria and Ghana, he said Ghanaians had always considered Nigerians as brothers and sisters, and if there have been rivalries between them, they must be seen as friction between brothers and sisters. Yet, in 2005, Ghana banned Nigerian film on this no way. In fact, it took the resilience of the Ghanaian audience to say no, we will not obey this. And then the government had to move from outright ban to that of collaboration. That's why you can see that Nigerian actors and actresses, they are not partnering with the. There was even in 2000 linked discussion on Saturday between UK and Nigeria, sorry, Ghana, the establishment of the National Commission to actualize the construction of Lagos Railway. This was in 2000. Jerry Ghana was saying, well, we really between one. but today, not sure they really selling it. Of course, they also cite energy name. What happened that the energy sector in Nigeria and that as many industries simply relocated. Collaboration between Kenya and simply even before the independence, many of our people were doing the station. When that day started in 1978, praying everywhere. And what we are saying that all these paperwork have not improved the trusting relationship, which is driven by doctrine of national interest, shaped by the demands of contemporary politics and economic conservation. This is why we are not talking of how to chart an invoice with a number of issues. What is study of stability event of the past? First, also be set to the story of society in that perspective. And what value does history give you? Well, it provides that vital understanding of chronology and dynamics of change over time. You will see, and then you can plan. And consequently, because of all this, it is not just something you can study in terms of cause and effect, but you can also look at it in terms of change and continuity. And in this case, continuity in change. Because of the things that bind us together. If you go back to history, and even the history of the colonial period, you will see similarities between Nigeria and Ghana. And like I said, you have the contrasting colonial period, the same colonial master, the same indirect rule system. In fact, Lagos was administered from Gold Coast from 1874 to 1886. And some of the colonial officials served both in Nigeria and Ghana. Clifford was governor of Gold Coast 1912 to 1980 and governor of Nigeria 1919 to 25. Sir Adabons, that wrote the history of Nigeria, was acting governor of Nigeria in 1942 before he was moved to Ghana as substantive. And then the colonization state followed the same trajectory, two historical phases, the one before 1945 and the one after 1945. And you have the radical orientation of the political parties that emerged in the post-1945 era. The core personalities of the leaders Nkrumah was Osagyefo, the redeemer. There was a need around Awu, even up to today. Many, in fact, when the man died, my friend told me, have you heard Awu is dead? I said, you mean, sorry to say, Sheoluwole? Because I didn't believe that the man would go. Incidentally, that was it. And the role of ex-servicemen and trade union in the crisis, the use of urban centers as platform for mobilization. And of course, in both cases, you have this constitutional process towards independence as distinct from, and you see, once there's a constitution in Nigeria, you have a parallel in Ghana and vice versa. 1922 constitution that introduced election into the process. You have the same thing in Gugisberg Constitution of 1925. In 1946, we have the Richard Constitution. The same importance you also have in 1946. And just as there was protest against that 1946 Constitution, the same thing that led to the 1951 Constitution. And that paved the way for the 1954 Constitution, that paved the way for the Independence Constitution. And this common experience under colonialism has resulted in the use of English as our official language, both in Ghana and in Nigeria, common legal system, the British model of administrative education system, and membership of the same common. And on the basis of all this complementarity, Ghana and Nigeria ought to closely aligned. But like I said, the past has been the case. And we are saying, on the basis of this standard relationship, there's need for parallel shift. And that leads me to the conclusion. Like I said, we have analyzed the problem. We have looked at the similarity. But can we continue like this? No. Those who believe that history has no basis in policy making, I think you have missed it. You have to change. Storytelling without application, so what? So what suggestion am I saying? I say there's need to recalibrate the inner rings of our international relations. Niger Republic, the president of Niger Republic was here only a few days ago. Now, Niger is not offering us anything. In fact, we are now building railway from Kano to Maradi, $2 billion. Nigeria will foot the major thing. And when the man came, Nigeria has been good. We supported us 10 years. We are now going to give your president the highest national honor of the Republic of Nigeria. And our president said, no problem. The Southeastern Way Expressway in Abuja is now Mahamadou Usufu. Well, that is what I have no problem with that. But that should not be only that one. There's Republic of Benin that has been applied. It's not only this year that they say make us the 37th or at least treat us at 37th state of Nigeria. That request has been there. 2011, 2015. This same thing was made, the same request was made to Jonathan. And if you trace the history back to the time of pre-colonial, the pre-independence period, people like Abiti and Suru, Megan, these are Yoruba on that side. And the road side, they have been saying, look, there shouldn't be this barrier between Nigeria and. So I also believe those people should be in. And the third one will be Ghana on the basis of the relationship. Secondly, not issues in Nigeria-Ghana relations should be immediately addressed, preferably by a joint committee. I would recommend the way forward. 3, technical committee should be set up to assess the level of implementation of 4 bilateral agreements and MOUs and recommend the way forward. 4, there should be cultural exchanges that will promote mutual understanding. As of now, we have many students, Nigerian students in Ghana, but that is not enough. As it was said, radio program, television programs could help. And of course, I'm also recommending the adoption of principle of rotation of headship in organizations involving youth, because it was the fear of marginalization that created the problem. But if you are rotating, at least that would serve to allay. And not only that, there's need to establish a dispute resolution body to manage residents before the first time. There should be enlightenment campaigns in both countries to emphasize the commonalities and complementarities of fair comparison and discriminatory speeches. And concluding remark, Nigeria-Ghana should not, the relations between Nigeria and Ghana should not be dictated by contemporary politics or economic considerations alone. It should also be guided by the history of common experience and colonial legacies. Political elite of both countries should look to the past for guidance. This message is symbolically conveyed by Sankofa and Akambod that is well positioned to move forward, but has the neck turned backward to pick useful information that can help you to forge ahead. I believe strongly that those who ignore their past will find it difficult to get to their preferred destination. And that's the picture of the board there. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Akili, for that scholarly intervention of Nigeria-Ghana relations. We also aim to pursue this conversation now during our plenary sessions. Bear with me, we're running out of time. I would like us to quickly, in the manner of urgency, we'll go for a tea break before we invite to the podium the lead paper presenter. So we'll go for just 10 minutes tea break, and by this order, we'll go from our professors, our dignitaries, our special guests of honor first, and others will join in a quick second. To go now. Let's go back so that we will continue the conversation. Thank you very much. Our professors can move on to the next room for the tea break. Our special guest, Professor Ayinla Lawal.
distinguished guests from UNILAG, Professor Kujo and Professor Kieri. It was nice to see you. Thank you, sir, for everything you said. My father would have really appreciated it. Thank you for honoring me this way. It means a lot. I'd like to also thank the Foursquare family for their prayers and support for taking time out to come. We're going to bless them. And last but not least, I'd like to thank our family and friends for their time and their involvement. And I'd like to thank everyone present here. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Because of want of time, I'm just going to invite Dr. Adebayo from UNILAG to give his own comments. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to say something about the Dr. Adebayo from the Department of History, University of Lagos. I first met Professor Lawal in 2008, then a young master's student in the Department of History and Strategic Studies. Like the current head of the department has said, Professor David Awarawo, he will say, come, he will like it. That particular year, he was sabbatical. But every time he comes around, he will say, come, young man, what are you working on? I told him I was working on problems and prospects of Pan-Africanism, Nkrumah, and the concept of African unity. We extensively discussed my MA project on the corridors. And each time I interact with him, whatever submissions he gave to me will prepare me to do more research on Nkrumah. At the end of the day, not a long story short, while I was doing the summary of the MA project, that also prepared me and put me in a class where I could go for my PhD and subsequently where I am today as a university lecturer, because I was one of the best graduate students in that set. I submitted to my supervisor, the current DSA of my University of Lagos, the minutes or the outcomes of my interaction with Sowa, despite what I read from my books and all that. At the end of the day, I called it being privileged to stand on the shoulders of giants. My supervisor wouldn't know I'll be discussing with Subawa on the corridors of the classroom while we were organizing Saint Paul for him in my department 2-3 years ago. I had to say this, that it's like I had the privilege to stand on the shoulders of giants to take the final submission of my project. And it was our job, one of the best projects in that set, 2008 set. And my interaction with him, after what I read the books, he didn't teach me because he was in America. My first interaction with him, I can never forget him. And even posthumously, I still see a shisa to Professor Lawal. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. We're going to take a comment from Professor Kenneth Oweko. Professor.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to make some remarks about Professor Lawal. I greet you, my teachers, the professors here, and my colleagues. My name is Kenneth Chukwumila. I'm studying here this afternoon as a historian. But without Professor Lawal, I wouldn't have ventured into the field of history. When my auntie took my jam score in some years past to do for admission for me at the University of Lagos, my first choice was mass communication. My second one was law at University of Abuja. Mass communication, I scored 230. I think that time the cut-off mark was 232. I was not given admission. I was told that my state, Imo State, had no catchment area, and that I was not a biological child of any of the lecturers there. So my auntie, I didn't know Professor Lawal then. My auntie went to Professor Lawal. She told me she had somebody that works in UNILAG that could help me get admission. I didn't know it was Professor Lawal. She took my papers to Professor Lawal. I think then Professor Lawal was the acting head of the department. He looked at my paper and, well, I had A1 in history. He said, why do I want to go to mass school of that? I can always come in here. So my aunt told me. I said, no. To go to ULAG to study history? No. Throughout my stay at the University of Lagos during my undergraduate, I was an unwilling historian. But it was Professor Lawal that kept me on that track. Most of the times in our 100 level, after each class, I'll go to the law faculty just to see. I didn't want people to know that I was studying history. Also, I want to see me, you just say, you know, the way you will approach you, you'll be scared. I said, what have I done? I'm just going to say, how are you coping with the way you just, it's gestures, how are you coping with it? I said, well, for now, sir, I'm okay. By the grace of God, we finished my Doctor Osigi as the best Rabbi students during our set. Before we left for service, just like Professor Olukoji did, Professor Lawal called me and said, we'll be expecting people like you back into the department. In fact, they advised to me by Professor Lawal and Professor Olukoji, begged me to return to the University of Lagos for my master's degree. Almost during the time that I completed my master's degree, and of course we were the first set that was given a letter to the PG school. By then the PG Professor Igwe, then Dr. Igwe, late now, to go to PG school to get it from where the first set that. Others would normally stay 1 year after the master before they could get it. Professor Lawal called me and said, hey, now that you have, that's what I miss about him. Say, hey, now that you have finished your, he said, what do you want to do now? I said, sir, honestly, I don't know. Maybe to get a PhD and see where it's up. Remember, this was the unwilling historian. Yes. Professor Lawal changed everything about my perception of history. Even when he took us in one of the American history courses, the way he would demonstrate, but it was from him. Up to that point, my 400 level, I didn't know, the representation of this change. I used to think it was Oshibei. It was Professor Lawal that taught us the matter. It was Ensobei. You know that we used to say, well, if you want to inspire people to do some work, you say, Oshibei. Give us the real rendition that it was Ensobei. During the movement of Africans to the New World. So these are some of the things that sometimes when I remember, I had this opportunity the last time it was there to do the lab. I think there was something else in his honor. I was really happy that I was not informed by my friends. I didn't want to say so many things that I could have said to him, which I didn't have the opportunity to say. Because it was just last day before I heard that he died, he came to my school. And there was this book that I edited with Dr. Osigi. He came and I said, he told me that he saw it, he read it, and was so pleased that I do something like that. He said I should give him a company, I did gladly, I gave him a company, and Then he now told me that if it's, is there any way that he could contribute to my department? I said yes, that the vision had already told me to look for courses to give to you, so that you come and help us in our department. He said, that he'd be glad to do that. He'd be glad to do that. Well, I didn't have that opportunity to engage him, because the next thing that I had was that he passed away. I also heard from, well, not from him, but from some of my colleagues, that he was the one that assessed my paper as associate professor. That's correct. And he gave glowing remarks about the history told me when he started having interactions with us. So today I want to thank him, man, even though although I told him this, about my ambition, but I want to thank a man that has shaped in some form my journey into historical scholarship. I want to appreciate a man that will always call you. There was time I published something with Dr. Iwe, and the title was Female Husbands in Igbo Land, South Nigeria. But someone called me one of the days that I visited the department. He just called me. You know, that was the one that he called, he just called me. He said, I saw one of the papers and I said, yes, I said, I was. I said, tell me, I said, come and teach me in his office. I was scared, sort of, the professor calling me to educate him or something like that. That shows you the level that he was open to learn, even from the list of people that he worked and imagine. So I got my help from Professor Lawal. This is my historical journey, and I'm eternally grateful to him. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kenneth Mubu. Your journey to the history department is well known to every one of us, and I'm willing to.
I don't have much to say about Professor Lawal, but the little I will say will be contained in a journal to be published very soon. Professor Lawal was an encyclopedia, and he never lacked in any discipline or domain of scholarship. So follow that trajectory by the grace of God. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. That's a good one for the remarks and comments you have had so far.
We want to have the vote of thanks now. And we're thinking of closing the
opening section. All right. I'll sign the picture known as the Quick Church from the organizer there.
I'm going to take the lead paper now. Join me as I welcome to the podium Professor former provost of Adi College of Education.
The Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Anchor University, my organs that are here, distinguished professors, the family of the late Professor Lawal, distinguished colleagues, it's a great honor for me to be here this afternoon to give this lead paper presentation. Before I proceed, I want to pray your indulgence to say one or two things about Professor Lawal. I'll be very, very brief. I just want to mention three quick points that I feel are very, very important. When I was told that Professor Lawal was supervising my PhD, I immediately ran back to my hostel in campus and told my colleagues, I said, I've been assigned to the PhD supervisor, and he's Professor Adebayo Lawal. And they said, you have been given Professor Cynic. That is a man that will never see anything good in anything. I was shocked. They said, okay, go and see him. And I went to his door and I knocked. Professor, and he left his seat. He met me at the door. He didn't know me coming. And I said, yes, can I help you? And I said, I was told that you are my PhD, that you're going to be my PhD supervisor. And he looked at me. Your PhD supervisor, and you are coming to inform me. I said, yes, sir. He said, my friend, don't waste my time. And he went back. I was now wondering, So I told another colleague, I said, go and meet the PG coordinator. That's Professor Akiyeye. So I met Professor Akiyeye. Professor now looked at me now like I said, Professor Lawal is a man of procedure. You are not the one to go there to inform him that he's your supervisor, that we should the department is operating him. So he now wrote the letter. And the letter was sent to Dr. Lawal. So we now said, go and see him again. And the second year I went there. Not from his city, he did not allow me to enter. And I said, I'm here again, sir. You are going to supervise. And I said, yes. I said, what's your name again? I told him, that's right. What are you working on? And I said, comparative history. Comparative history. What do you know about comparative history? I explained a little that I did. I said, okay. What will happen is that go and give me a term paper. You have to submit in 2 weeks. And then after that, we'll address the announcement. So I went back. On the dot of 2 weeks I was there, I just saw this small note on the top. Excellent handwriting. I said, Mr. Oya, please drop your term paper in my pigeonhole and see me at maybe 2 or 3 days time. So I dropped it in my pigeonhole. The day I asked me to come, I just came in. I knocked again. He said, come in. For the first time, I was ushered into it. I said, sit down. How many of these papers did you produce? I said, 2 copies. So you go and bring my own because I already have comments on this one with me, which I will pass on back to you. But go and bring mine. So he now said, are you familiar with the computer? I said, yes. Okay. There's something I'm doing. Come and assist me. So I turned the computer side. I went out and said, no, come and sit on my seat. Come and sit on my seat. I said, no, sir. I was shivering, I was shaking. He insisted that I should sit. So for the first time, I sat on the professor's seat. This is America, who described him as Professor Civic. Now passed and he saw me. And he now went back to the hall when I just said, oh yeah, you don't know him. This robot is too well. He has used the truth for Professor Lawal. He now used the Professor Lawal seat. You know, it is very, very Professor Lawal was a man of once you follow a laid down procedure, you just have to be. The second one, I was a lecturer in Akuba, and I'm still pursuing the PhD. So one day I went to submit one of my chapters. As I was leaving, I said, okay, I'm going to start. I said, and then I got to come back. He opened the drawer, counted 3,000 naira, and gave it to me. Use that one for your fuel. Because God said I should keep it. I was stupefied. And that again is very tough. I never had to buy a gift for Professor Lawal. I never had to do anything to cut his paper. He gave me. And then when I had finished, I submitted, and I said, well, I've read all your work, everything is okay. Go and pick the Professor Mrs. Adebayo so that they can arrange your last seminar. So I was doing that, now requested, that's the area where you work on. Is it not close to the coast? I said, yes. Some slave trading activities must have taken place. I didn't mention anything related to slave trading, and I concluded. And I said, well, if you don't mind, this will slow you down a bit. If you can go back and you put it, fine. If you don't want it, what you have done is good enough to earn you a PhD. Choice is yours. And I went back. That delayed my work for 6 good months because I had to go back to the field. I had to go back to the archive. But you see, that 6 month delay, before I finished the PhD, I had a conference invitation from the University of York. That would be the first time I would travel out of this country. All expenses paid, based on the fact that I followed this. Later, after getting the PhD, that aspect of my work earned me 2 prestigious postdoctoral fellowships. Wow. And 3 conference invitations. The essence is that we should always listen to our mentors and supervisors and not be too much. Really, really sad because we're trying to organize this kind of clinical talk for we are trying to celebrate But so many people don't even know the matter. So many. You need to really get close to people to know that. No, he was a scholar, a humanist, and extremely honest man. Very rare, very rare. So on this note, I want to go to my presentation, but even before the presentation, let me thank the organizers of this Honorable Department of History and Strategic Studies, University of Lagos, and the host department of the RHOD, who have been on my neck for some time that I have to be here. We couldn't honor Professor Lawal when he was alive, but we are still doing this. But the import of what we are doing today is to make sure that we try to honor all our guests when they are still alive. So I'll discuss with the HOD something to keep the memory going now for what the department does for what we are doing. I'm going to have something for the best student in economic history in your department. Amen. The name of Professor Adebayo Lawal, starting from this year's association. My topic is on, I'll be brief. I didn't have time to put the slide because I just finished it this morning. Corruption and border politics, the dynamics of colonial border interventions in Ikaleland, southeastern Yoruba. And I begin by saying that in order not to be accused of self-plagiarism, the version of this paper, the one that did not address the issue of corruption, had earlier been published in 2016 in the United Kingdom, and is titled Post-History, Post-Sources. Post-History, Post-Sources, Colonial Border Manipulations, and the Poverty of Archival Records in the Caribbean. The paper, this present paper, is a critical examination of the fact of corruption as it affected colonial border manipulations in the Caribbean. Specifically, it interrogates the historical dynamics of colonial border demarcations along the Ikale-Ondo, Ikale-Ijebu, and Ikale-Edo borderland. For my sources, I rely on archival data, ethnography, and supplementary secondary sources. The main arguments, these are the main arguments. The study challenges the popular notion that in pre-colonial Africa, domination over people was more important than control over land or economic resources. And that is by aligning with the position of my Professor Akiyede, that administrative history is far more central than economic history. So, although you are not using enough, I said my main argument here is that we are challenging the popular notion that in pre-colonial Africa, domination over people was more important than control over land economic resources. You know, we are challenging that. The border conflicts in pre-colonial Canada primarily ensued from dispute over natural resources rather than from struggles for political domination or outright control over subjects. And the farmlands and hunting grounds were the main issues. Colonial border manipulations were basically targeted at control over economic resources, increased tax revenue for favored groups as well as an effective and efficient administration. And we argue by saying that the example evidence of official corruption and dishonesty on the part of British colonial administrators and judicial officials who were saddled with the task of border delineation and settlement of border disputes. Now the effect of all these policies institutionalized dismemberment of the territorial landscape and cultural heritage. Cultural affinity and the fact of geographical contiguity were ignored by the British colonial officials in order to rationalize the downsizing of the Ikale group. Aggravation of internal conflicts and rivalries up to the present day. Discussion of salient historical facts and the rise of several historiographical absurdities by colonial officers and the local actors. The conclusion is that colonial border interventions continue to aggravate taboo conflicts in this strategic borderland region, and the long-term effect of these interventions continue to affect harmonious taboo relations among the affected. And we recommend, just to toe the line of my guiding, we recommend this, that historical and cultural understanding rather than the prevailing superficial legal and political approaches to solving various disputes and clashes is very, very paramount. So we go to theoretical and conceptual issues in corruption and colonial border politics. Corruption was highly important in the scholarship of Professor Lawal, and his inaugural lecture was based on corruption. So that is one of the reasons why I also decided to click on this, to look at the dimension of corruption that has not been addressed in recent times. Corruption has rarely been defined from diverse perspectives. However, the general consensus seems to be that corruption is usually born out of greed, avarice, rapacity, and is committed to the cause of public, private, and social evils. Some of the recurring themes here include the giving and taking of bribes, extortion, misappropriation, nepotism, economic sabotage, and other fraudulent or immoral schemes that are targeted at personal arrangements or to secure undue advantage for oneself. Oshoba is of the view that corruption has been very notorious as a social phenomenon in the Nigerian politics from colonial times to the present. Indeed, corruption became the principal means of private accumulation during the decolonization period in Nigeria, and in the absence of other means, came to shape political activity and competition after independence. The author concludes that corruption, like all social phenomena, is intelligible only in its total social context. Thus, for Oshoba, corruption is inevitably a byproduct of an intrinsically corrupt internationally capitalist system in which lower class groups are routinely and systematically exploited. We argue that socialist or communist society are no less corrupt than capitalist one, and that neo-Marxist analysis of corruption, such as the one advanced by Oshoba, did not recognize, let alone explain variations in corruption among capitalist countries or between socialist and capitalist countries. Interestingly, Clapton supports the view that corruption could be best understood in the socio-economic context. For him, the base of corruption is mostly political, but that in its manifestation, corruption is economical and social, for it aims at enriching certain layers of society and so influences the distribution of income and of wealth in general. From a Western ethnocentric viewpoint, and basking in the illusion that corruption simply entails fraudulent enrichment on the part of public officials, Jackman advanced two theories, which we are going to explain now, to explain the phenomenon of corruption. The first took a cultural approach, suggesting that corruption stems from social norms that emphasize gift-giving and loyalty to family or clan rather than the rule of law. The second explanation, the revisionist approach, attributes the phenomenon of corruption to a country's particular stage of development. Within the revisionist school, some scholars even argue that corruption is efficiency enhancing. It helps alleviate problems of capital formation and administrative inflexibility, characteristic of modernizing economies. This writer suggests that corrupt practices facilitate development, and when countries reach a certain level of economic development, presumably advanced industrial status. That is according to Jackman. Apart from the fact that the cultural approach to understanding corruption is fundamentally flawed, Eurocentric analysis of corruption in developing countries also has a tendency to blame poverty, lack of a savings culture, ostentatious living, and lack of public responsibility as the causes of corruption. And this is according to our late Professor Lawal. Again, bouts of national depression, recent experiences as encapsulated in the current global economic meltdown, and the collapse of the world's major financial institutions will suggest that Jackman's theory of corruption are gravely ahistorical. As far as the phenomenon of corruption is concerned in Nigeria, and emphasizing the fact that corruption was not a major problem in Nigeria during the pre-colonial period, and argued that the bastardization of Nigeria's religious practices, as well as its economic and political structures by the colonial administrators, was the very foundation of corruption in the country. Again, the author is of the view that corruption goes beyond mere financial impropriety and encompasses other forms of social evil, a view earlier canvassed by Wanzi. But the sweeping assertion that was only natural to exploit their subjects in the people over whom they exercise control was commonly regarded as mere subjects. Clambering further rightly reaffirmed, and I quote, he said, to the dispassionate historian, honest government is the exception, and corruption, human nature being what it is the rule in the history of mankind. That if you are honest, if you are straightforward, it is an exceptional case. That the general trend since the beginning of history is that human society we are naturally corrupt. Interestingly, Professor Lawal deals extensively with the various manifestations of colonial corruption in Nigeria in his inaugural lecture, such as bureaucratic corruption, financial malpractices, especially in the banking and financial sector, the fraudulent activities of British colonial administrators, as well as the corruptive influences of European trading firms and advertisement agencies. Nevertheless, administrative corruption has exemplified the fraudulent border manipulations that was deliberately designed to give one group overwhelming advantage over the other was not considered. And that is the essence of this debate. I'm of the considered opinion that the scholarly study of the phenomena of corruption is of great importance for historical research. Therefore, its application to issues and tenets now prevailing in the field of economic history needs some additions and revisions. And I submit that colonial border manipulations, which resulted in Nigeria's arbitrary and problematic colonial imposed internal boundaries, constitute veritable genres of official corruption during the colonial era. Consequently, it appears that the study of colonial corruption from the lens of border studies is of fundamental significance to a proper understanding of Nigeria's age-long, conflict-prone internal borders and problematic intergroup relations. Adebayo argues that Nigeria's pre-colonial boundaries were very fluid, and that with the imposition of arbitrary colonial administrative boundaries on the hitherto ethnic frontiers, these boundaries became very rigid and conflictual. Professor Ayinla corroborates this view and submits that Nigeria's colonial imposed internal boundaries did not coincide with pre-colonial ethnic or linguistic boundaries, but reflected rival patterns of colonial administration in the country, and that the principal colonial administrators would not even agree on the parameters for dividing the country into administrative units. Historically and contemporaneously, the importance of border studies cannot be overemphasized. Indeed, Max Weber was said to have underscored this point by affirming that the whole history of humanity has been concerned with attempts to make social, political, and functional boundaries coincide. It has even been further suggested by Anderson that borders are not simply lines on maps whose one jurisdiction ends and another begins. Borders are political institutions, no rule-bound economic, social, and political life to function without them. Remarkably, and in spite of the widely acknowledged significance of boundary studies, this field is relatively new in Nigeria, especially when the volume of works already shown that in the same field in Europe and North America is considered. Even then, the few studies carried out in Nigerian borderland have also concentrated mainly on Nigerian international boundaries. Thus, the internal boundaries have attracted less scholarly attention. Adebayo, for instance, is one of the few exceptions to this trend, and his work is also very significant for this present study because he examines the lingering Ikale-Ondo boundary disputes as one of his thematic focus. The author also advocates for a geographical understanding rather than the prevailing superficial legal and political approach to solving boundary disputes. And I wish to add that a historical, apart from geographical understanding, a historical and cultural understanding of Nigeria's numerous broader problematic promises great reward. Now, specifically, when I go to colonial interventions along the Ikale-Ondo borderland, and why I consider the policies that were taken then as evidence of official corruptions during the colonial period. I'm sorry, the map is not here, but the Ikale land happens to be a frontier zone par excellence because it shares boundary with 7 major groups, and these are the Ilaje, the Akoi, the Ijo, the Ondo, the Idore, the Ijebu, and the Edo. And you have the Ikale land starts from the state Ikale, you have the Ado Ikale, and then you have the Ikale Oba imports. So as a result of colonial manipulation. But how did they think about this administrative structure? That is the point that the scenario in the calendar was particularly compelling, confronted with a vast territory made up of 14 kingdoms, 14 pre-colonial kingdoms, with each kingdom being inundated with several settlements in a heavily forested area of Yoruba land. British officials had to devise expedient means of administering the calendar. And one of the major strategies employed was the systematic dismemberment of Ikale land for ease of administration. The easternmost end comprising the Ikale kingdom of Akoto, Guadiagba, and Yosun, 3 kingdoms were cut off and renamed Benin Confederation, or Ado Ikale, because in Ikale land, anybody from Benin is referred to as Ado. So they were referred to as Ado Ikale. They had nothing to do with Ikale. The westernmost part of Oshoro Kingdom, comprising several towns like Ayinla, Ayede, Ibu, Arija, Ikule, Kebi, and so on, were excised and placed under Ijebu province. It is interesting to know that the Ikale people there were renamed Ijebu Ikale. In the north, several settlements like Lafe, Yabale, Lowo Agabu, Onishere, Umobi, and so on were removed from the Otuba division and merged with Ondo division. And a recourse to history came in handy in an attempt to rationalize and justify these artificial divisions. Unfortunately, it was a one-sided history from the point of view of the major Ikale ruling houses, who mainly are Benin derived, or Edo derived, and the Ijebu and Ondo national authorities, all acting in concert with the British colonial officials. Meanwhile, as far as the formation of the Benin Confederation was concerned, that is on the eastern end, Mr. Matthews, the district commissioner, reported that he visited the Ikale land in 1912 and noticed that the native court at Ikoya, which was central, was too far from Akotogo on the eastern end, and subsequently directed that another court should be established at that instance. He now concluded that the people of Akotogo, Ajabade, Yosun, 3 kingdoms, stopped attending meetings at Ikoya because they had nothing to do with the mainstream Ikale, because they had more to do with the Edo. The point is that when you are in a frontier and you are living along the border, that tendency that because you interact daily with other people, there are some cultural influences like language, culture, not having. That would not be sufficient to now say that you don't have your own origin. You have nothing to do with the mainstream. You could be exiled, merged with other, simply because you wanted more money, you wanted to raise more avenues, simply because administrative convenience. Dearbody, that is the paramount ruler in the Ikale land. Another Ikale ruler later reiterated the fact and pointed out that the people of the Benin Confederation are bona fide Ikale people who had been attending meetings at Ikale from time immemorial and until about 1916. As a result of the long distance from other Ikale towns were given their own court at Akotogo. But the assistant district officer for Oxogo Division then, Mr. C. Agami, the author of the Ikale intelligence report, reported that this claim was a fabrication. He not quickly reported to the government the claim of the Ikale was a fabrication. As usual, Mr. Agami started off his defense of the startup by not creating his objective history. He opined without any convincing evidence that the history of Akotogo and Yosun proclaimed them to be independent Edo units, and that the language spoken as well as the indigenous organization of these kingdoms are fundamentally different from that of the other color. Nothing further from. Now that is an evidence, it's honest. Even if you go down what is we were able to speak passing with Edo simply because they had interaction, mostly trade relations with the other group. But here you see a colonial official teaching it that they had nothing. The point being emphasized there is that the British officials found the distortion of the historical account of Ikale people expedient in order to justify the continued excision of this area from Ikale land. Moreover, an attempt was made in 1937 by the district officer of Oxogo Division to wipe the Ikale kingdom of Inyason, now Now, they wanted to merge another kingdom to make it four, because that one was also nearby. With the Benin Confederation again, the weapon employed was a misinterpretation and distortion of the authentic history of the people of Inyos. In a letter dated 29 May 1937 to the resident, Ondo province, the district officer claimed that while visiting Inyos on 24th May 1937, the theologian chief surprised me by saying that he felt their connection with the Kale to be something of a mock, and they would not prefer to join with the Benin Confederation. They said that these both descendants had the same interest and were geographically intimately connected with the Benin. They added that they were Kales only in name. It is hardly necessary, I'm still quoting him, it is hardly necessary to dive upon the many and obvious difficulties of administering Inyos as part of Kales, nor upon the corresponding advantages of inclusion in the Benin Confederation. Surprisingly, the residents, even where you have the most beauty, it's just one person. Now the resident replied the district officer that the Kale Council was unanimous in opposing the move to merge Inyos with the Confederation. The resident went further. That contrary to the claim being made by the district officer, Inyos people never suggested that they were not a Kale. The position of the resident might be connected with the new awakening and realization on the part of the Kale traditional authorities about the unstoppable effects of the systematic dismantling of the Kale territorial landscape. But apart from the so-called case of Adoe Kale, even more compelling was the use to which history was put to justify the existence of several Kale settlements, a few of which include Lafe, Ojabale, Onishere, Umobi, and so on, in the north of the Aye Kingdom and the Amaja with the Ondo division. It should be borne in mind that Mr. A.R.W. Sale, the district officer on Ondo division, had in an earlier judgment on 19 June 2022 placed this Ikale settlement within Ikale administrative and cultural enclave in the north of Aye. Aye is one of the kingdoms in the Ikale land. Again, Mr. Matthews, the district officer, wrote, and I quote, "Much information has been obtained regarding the history of the Kale people, and there is evidence to show that the Kales have occupied land north of the present Battle, that is north of Aye district from Oda. However, Justice A.P. Pennington, that is the judge, saw things differently and ruled in 1923 that the Kale are descendants of slaves who escaped from Benin to the Yoruba country, and as such, the Kale cannot lay claim to a distinct Yoruba territory. As a matter of fact, the Oshimawe of Ondo relied on this ruling and started putting up claims to the entire Ikale country, including the kingdoms lying within the Benin Confederation. Nevertheless, the real reason why this Ikale settlement was placed under Ondo division was to come to light in April 1928, when his father, Major R.F. Rocks, held meetings with the traditional chiefs, both at Okitiopa and at Ondo. It was at this meeting that he confessed, the colonial official was now confessing. It was at this meeting that he confessed that the then colonial boundary had nothing to do with any origin or the ownership of land, but with the jurisdiction of the two commissioners or the provincial courts. Now, the Rocks now confessed before this at the meeting held at Ondo and later at Okitimupa, that the colonial boundary had nothing to do with ethnic origin or the ownership of land, but with the jurisdiction of the two commissioners or the provincial court. Indeed, on 17 February 1937, Mr. H.G. Ablin, the resident of Dokula, at the meeting with their board, pointed out the lopsidedness and unsatisfactory nature of the political boundary between the Ondo and the Ikale. He, however, insisted, even after knowing that it was wrong, he, however, insisted that boundary must not be tampered with for ease of administration. First, to further portray the point that the facts of Ikale history were either ignored or glossed over by the British colonial officer in order to rationalize the downsizing of the Ikale country for efficient administration, the case of the Ijebu Ikale is also worth citing. As noted earlier, the large expanse of land lying between the Bagada and Ofara rivers, where the Ikale people had settled for several centuries, was cut off The British authorities turned a deaf ear to the vociferous protest of the people that they were part and parcel of the Oshoro kingdom, and that they would prefer to be placed within the same administrative unit with their kith and kin. The principled opposition and agitation by the other Ekale against this was also ignored. It is interesting to note that on the 15th of June 1922, the district officer of Ondo Province, Mr. Sal, submitted, and I quote again, the claim of the Ekale to the portion of land between Garagada and Ofara rivers at present under Ejebode. With reference to this claim, that of the Ekale will appear to be fully justified. The people in the land in dispute are Ekale and look upon the Aboji as their paramount chief. Again, the recommendations of Captain Mackenzie and Mr. White in 1922, and that of Mr. Matthews in 1932, that the Ekale by the rightful owner of the part of land in dispute were turned down by the lieutenant governor, Mr. Buchanan Smith. The governor added that if the Ekale were inhabiting the disputed land were desirous of joining their brethren in the Ekale land, they were free to do so, but that the existing boundary would not be altered. And furthermore, between the 10th and 11th of April 1913, Mr. F.L. Tabo, the district commissioner Ondo, and I, the district commissioner Adebayo, met at Ayinla. Ayinla is state now. I reported as follows. I quote again, the Ayinla people are Ekale, and there's no doubt that formerly the Ekale family land up to the Ofara River. The effect of making the Garagada River and the boundary between the Ekale and the Jabu is to reduce the power of the Aboji. In our opinion, the Ofara River should be the boundary between Ekwe and Ekale, but we hesitate to suggest any alteration at present, as the result will be an addition of a piece of country to the Rose district, far removed from headquarters and increasing the unwieldy size of the district. It is indubitable for the preceding analysis that the Jebu Ekale, Ekale people and the land which they occupy is part and parcel of the Ekale territorial landscape. Curiously enough, the Jebu's claim which was supported by the British authority was that the Ekale are from Guinea and that the disputed land was owned by the Onekwe of people, and since the Awujale of Jebu land is the consenting authority to the Onekwe group, it follows that the Awujale is the owner of the land between Garagada and Ofara. Ironically, the Onekwe of people admitted several correspondents that the Onekwe has a biological connection with the Ekale people and that the majority of the people of people are Ekale. Aladimu Kenyo, who Professor Akijobi has described as one of the people that collected the largest volume of tradition, of Yoruba tradition, has this to say. According to Aladimu Kenyo, which once figured as one of the oldest clan districts in the Ekale land, has long been cut off from this country and administratively included in the Jebu province. The Oba and its people have consequently been deprived of the privilege of doing things in common with the original people in the Ekale. Under the full, clear and active support of the British colonial administrators, the Awujale, by relying on the British theory, on the British theory of origin and its Ekale settlement, started on a number of Ekale traditional authorities and even directed that the Abata of Ayede will have to surrender his appointment as president of the originating report if the Abata ventured to return to the throne. They were angry, they were even willing to leave. But here you see traditional ruler coming up. Lead your people out. Then you have the of the origin. So the fact that the British colonial origin is identity and is unconvincing actually encouraged and even give it an necessity. All in the being is what this official part in this side of the Ekale territorial landscape. The fallout kind of confliction between the people still go back, get to their there are so many and they've been put down for more than 100 years now. And we take them, we rely on them. Judgment are still being given based on all these faulty, dishonest all these faulty, dishonest colonial administrative decisions. I conclude that this paper has examined corruption as it affected colonial border manipulations in the calendar, and that just like the partitioning which took place in Berlin, the artificial and arbitrary partition of Nigeria's internal boundaries not only resulted in the creation of administrative units with heterogeneous population, but also in the splitting of culturally and linguistically homogeneous into separate administrative entities, irrespective of socio-ethnic, religious, and trading links. The study challenges the popular notion that in colonial Africa, domination of people was more important than control over land and economic resources. And we say that as far as this borderland is concerned, border conflict primarily ensued from dispute over natural resources, rather than from struggles for political domination or outright control over subjects. Farmland and hunting grounds were the main issues. Interestingly, this border problematic was given additional impetus during the colonial era. Colonial border gerrymandering was basically targeted at control over economic resources. The resultant effect was the institutionalized territorial dismemberment of the Italian landscape and the multiple partitioning of the hitherto single Italian cultural entity. Salient historical facts, cultural affinity, and the factor of geographical control were ignored by the British colonial officials in order to rationalize the downsizing of the Italian country, ostensibly for ease of administration and the optimal utilization of economic resources. From a comparative sample, this study is of the view that the aforementioned colonial border interventions aggravated the group conflict in this strategic borderland region, and that the long-term effect of colonial manipulations of this borderland continue to adversely affect harmonious economic relations among the affected. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate our prof once again. That's a beautiful survey of the history of the border intervention in the Kaliland, the southeastern Yoruba land. At this moment, we are going to take a goodwill message from the representative of the Dean of Faculty of Arts, University of Lagos, Associate Professor President Afolayan. Welcome.
I'm here to represent Professor Ayinla Adebayo, the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, University of Lagos. We are at present writing the exams. That's why she could not be here. All protocols duly observed. I'm going to read that message. Goodwill message from the Dean Faculty of Arts, University of Lagos. I bring warm fraternal greetings from the Faculty of Arts, University of Lagos, and welcome you to this first Professor Ayinla Adebayo Lawal Colloquium, organized by Anchor University in collaboration with the Department of History and Strategic Studies, University of Lagos. My first reaction when I got the invitation to this colloquium was to ask, why Anchor University? Did Professor Lawal lecture at Anchor University? I quickly answered myself by thanking God for the lives and careers of the architects of this program domiciled at Anchor University that had been touched by Professor A. Lawal's mentorship and tutelage at the University of Lagos. This, in fact, is a testimony to his trans-institutional relevance and value, even in death. He was not a local champion. I want to specially commend the Vice Chancellor, management and staff of Anchor University for making resources and facilities available for the hosting of this program. You shall all be celebrated in Jesus' name. Gatherings like this are very significant because they serve to commemorate the legacy of the departed. Many of us are familiar with religious rituals and their associated invocations and appeasements. What we have come to do today is an academic ritual that promotes the sustainability of the key intellectual campaigns of an intellectual ancestor. Professor Adebayo Lawal had a distinguished career at the University of Lagos, where he served from November 1979 to April 2018. During these 39 years, he rose from the position of lecturer grade 2 in the field of economic history of Africa, tourism and economic development, population and urban studies, African slavery and slave trade. He also carved a niche for himself in African American studies and the African diaspora. In addition, he devoted substantial attention in his later years to the study of traditional African medicine. His numerous local and international publications speak to these issues. Had considerable administrative experience. He served in the various university committees. He was head hallmaster, sub-dean, head of department, and acting dean. In fact, he traversed many of the administrative trajectories of the university system available to academics. Professor Lawal was an international scholar with various laurels that distinguished him. He was a proud recipient of several academic fellowships and grants, such as the University of Lagos Scholarship for PhD, Research in London, Rockefeller Visiting Research Fellowship at the University of the Western Cape, South Africa, Senior Fulbright Research Fellowship to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, USA, and the Lagos Chamber of Commerce grant for research in London. Later this morning, someone else will present a full citation which has been done on Professor Adebayo Lawal, where I must point out the fact that his most enduring legacy are his students. He poured his life into them as he taught, modeled, and mentored them. Many of them rose to become full professors, and one of them even became a vice chancellor. Professor Lawal was a devout and God-fearing Christian. He was never involved in any scandal throughout his four decades of service at the University of Lagos. He was a lover of peace, and many of us fondly called him Oga Lawal because we saw him as a mentor and a father. The Faculty of Arts, University of Lagos identifies with this noble initiative of immortalizing our own Professor Adebayo Lawal through this annual colloquium. We anticipate that this one-day intellectual engagement will further expand the frontiers of knowledge beyond the seed sown by Professor Lawal. And she's welcoming all of us, I think that's late now, to this colloquium, and that she wishes all of us a most fruitful discussion and joint messages back to our respective. Signed, Professor Funke Adebayo, University of Lagos. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the remarks. We appreciate. We are going to please